The Diocese of Pueblo, Colorado. The story of the faith in this region began with the missionary efforts of Spanish priests, was sustained and nurtured by holy bishops, priests, and nuns, and carries on today under the leadership of its current apostle, Bishop Stephen Jay Berg.
This is a different vocation. This is fathering at a different level. How do you get across this sense that you're walking with them? That to me is why I'm here. It's very quiet, but it has much to do with how the inside connects with the outside.
This is the story of the bishops of America, the shepherds of the past and the shepherds of today, who through their callings and ministry carry the church into the future. It's also the story of their parish, their church, the cathedral. This is The Chair, an exploration of what it means to be an apostle in America. Pueblo stands near the heart of the Centennial State, situated on the flat plains in the eastward shadow of the Rocky Mountains. Pueblo is known for its cold winters, warm summers, and sunshine all year round. It's also the sea city of the Diocese of Pueblo.
The landscape, the environment is so beautiful. As you drive through some of our mountain passes, and you have to go through mountain passes to get from one place to the other, so we're talking about 6-hour drives as being fairly normal here. We have different cultures spread out from the high deserts of the San Luis Valley and then in through the Alamosa Valley into Durango. In Grand Junction, we border the Blue Mesa Reservoir, which is the largest body of water in Colorado, although very few people know that. The beauty is just amazing, and you turn every corner and you see something different. We do have people working here, priests in particular, international from different countries.
The Diocese of Pueblo was founded in 1941. At the time it was erected, the diocese covered the entire southern tier of the state, stretching from Kansas all the way to Utah, creating a vast territory to administer. And even though the Diocese of Pueblo was the younger diocese in Colorado, it actually possessed the older Catholic roots, stretching back to the era of Spanish colonial settlement, with missionary priests traveling up from the Spanish territories in Mexico in order to serve the Catholic population in the region.
Franciscan missionaries come up from Mexico into what is New Mexico, eventually into the territory of what we call Colorado. However, missionary efforts are really challenging because of the rocky terrain, the inability to navigate areas, and the lack of real community. In the mid-1800s, this area becomes more permanently settled. Along with so many others, Catholics begin to flood into the Pueblo area in 1858, looking to make their fortune in gold or other mineral mining areas. And as a result of this, Pueblo becomes this very multicultural, multi-diverse, multi-faith-based city in which the Catholics do find extraordinary influence. In 1857, Bishop LeMay establishes the first parish, Our Lady of Guadalupe, which really expresses the fact that there are so many Spanish-speaking people in the Pueblo area.
In the 1850s, this area was part of the Apostolic Vicariate of New Mexico, which a few years later became the Archdiocese of Santa Fe, with John Baptiste Lamy as bishop. Lamy's vicar general is a man named Joseph Mashbouf, who eventually becomes the vicar apostolic of Colorado and Utah. And then, in 1878, with the creation of the new Diocese of Denver, its first bishop.
Mashbuf was an incredible bishop, not just someone who was a very keen and attentive administrator, but as bishop, he had a missionary spirit to him. He would travel about what is now the state of Colorado into the areas of Pueblo and other places in his carriage, ministering to his parishioners, hearing confessions, saying Mass. Over this very, very challenging terrain. At one point, he was thrown out of his carriage and was crippled for the rest of his life, but it never stopped him from really ministering to the people of the area.
Among the Colorado pioneers in the Diocese of Pueblo were also many women religious who came to the region to provide both education and health care in the remote mining towns and isolated Catholic communities. In 1896, the Sisters of Charity from Leavenworth came to establish a hospital in Grand Junction. It started off with only a handful of beds, but soon grew into a regional hospital. And the work that the sisters provided in ministering not just to the Catholic community, but to the wider population of the region was recognized and respected by the local population. One of the pioneering Sisters of Charity, Sister Mary Balbina Farrell, is honored this day with a statue in Grand Junction as one of the pioneers of the Grand Valley. And the Catholic sisters really took up a difficult task, going off into mining camps to minister to the population. And not just that, but also taking up the difficult work of raising funds in order to support their hospital activities. And at a time before health insurance was a thing, the sisters pioneered early forms of health insurance by selling subscriptions to their hospitals. All those who contributed to the hospital's building fund as subscribers were promised free medical care in exchange. And so this was the way the sisters pioneered health care throughout the Mountain West.
Bishop Joseph Wilging, the Bishop of Iowa, is named Pueblo's first bishop.
He served the diocese for 17 years and was known as a gifted organizer. During his episcopate, the number of parishes increased from approximately 39 to 60, and the number of priests increased from 84 to 151. The second bishop of the diocese, Charles Albert Buswell, led the people of Pueblo from 1959 until 1979. He was tasked with implementing the reforms of the Second Vatican Council, as well as navigating a society and culture with radically changing values and mores from the one that many Catholics had grown up with.
One of the challenges facing the Diocese of Pueblo was keeping up with the need for Catholic education in the post-World War II period. As the baby boom generation swelled the ranks of Catholic schools, the diocese had trouble sustaining established schools and keeping up with growth. And so with that, in 1971, the difficult decision was made to close the Catholic schools of the diocese because they were not able to be sustained with available funding. In more recent years, efforts have been made in the diocese to reestablish parochial schools. And so today there are 4 Catholic elementary schools in the diocese serving the local population as part of a rebirth and renewal of Catholic education in the Diocese of Pueblo.
Throughout the decades, the Mother Church and the center of liturgical worship for the Catholics of Pueblo has been the Cathedral of the Sacred Heart. The parish has its roots in the Catholic settlements from 150 years ago. The present church building was built in 1912, and when the diocese was created in 1942, it was the natural choice to become the cathedral.
I think that the cathedral is a gem. When the diocese was founded some 76, 77 years ago, it was founded right at the beginning of the Second World War. And this cathedral was here as a church. Of course, it had to be named as a cathedral, but it is, first of all, the Cathedral of the Sacred Heart. And I have been heavily influenced and continue to walk and learn through the Jesuit spirituality.
Sacred Heart Cathedral is an example of Gothic Revival architecture. It's been largely unchanged over the course of over 100 years, besides a renovation to the steeple. And the U.S. Department of the Interior actually placed it on the National Register for Historic Places. An outdoor shrine next to the cathedral shows a beautiful bronze statue of Saint Therese of Lisieux. And she's pictured scattering roses, and she's actually the patroness of the Diocese of Pueblo. The Cathedral of the Sacred Heart features incredible stained glass, completed by Bavarian-born artist Emil Frey, who moved to Missouri in 1890. And the two pieces that are quite striking flank the transept on the north and south sides. And so one shows an image of Christ with open arms welcoming children, so there are young mothers approaching Christ and offering their children. It recalls the verse from Matthew 19:14 that says, "Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." So it's a beautiful image.
From the moment that the music starts, I'm filled with joy. Whatever else is on my mind, this cathedral has a certain uplifting quality to me. All of my churches do that. That's, the opening sounds of the opening hymn, and all of a sudden you're in the presence of God. And everything else, the crying babies and everything, we hope that we have more of them. I love when I sit at the chair there to look at this window here. And this is the Jesus with the little children. And it is something that I have a reproduction of this next to my piano in my rectory. It's something, that's just very comforting to look over there and see Jesus, the Good Shepherd, in this beautiful piece of artwork here.
On the opposite side, we see the Assumption of Our Lady. She's surrounded by angels, and the angels are holding lilies and strewing roses down onto the ground. So these flowers are symbolic of the Virgin Mary. She's often called the mystical rose. The lily is a symbol of her purity. And the flowers are also associated with an ancient legend or kind of pious tradition around the Assumption of the Virgin that says that when the apostles gathered around where she had fallen asleep, or her tomb, it was actually filled with flowers. There was no body, and she was assumed body and soul into heaven.
The cathedra, or chair, inside the Cathedral of the Sacred Heart represents Bishop Berg's authority as the Apostle of Pueblo.
I was born in Miles City, Montana in 1951. It was a beautiful childhood. It was full of love and laughter and 9 brothers and sisters. We went through Catholic school, that was our life. Catholic school, Catholic sports, Catholic music. We were parts of the choir and the band, and I played the piano. But it was a disciplined household. We all had our jobs to do every day. I remember we got an allowance, finally, at one point, 50 cents every other week, and we were told that it would immediately go into our college fund. So this was the kind of a family that really did plan for the kids to succeed in some form or fashion. And we've all been very close. We're all still very much in faith, families of faith. I now have somewhere between 40 or 50, or maybe 55 nieces and nephews. I've done 10 or 11 Catholic weddings of my nieces and nephews. Just finished one in Seattle. The family itself has been a great source of strength to me. My mother is 94 now, and she's still all of our best friends. She can't see. She's in an assisted living, and she's paralyzed, except for the hand that holds the phone. And so we can pick up and talk to her, and we still have that clear connection with common sense, faith, and unconditional love. Although she doesn't hesitate to poke us in the eye a little bit, if she thinks that we need it. As I went through high school, I developed some gifts as far as music is concerned. I was a good pianist. I still am fair, but I was a state award winner in Montana, and I got a music scholarship to Gonzaga University. Then I went on to the University of Colorado, and I got the master's degree in New Mexico. And so I came to Fort Worth to study with a teacher there, hoping to be a professional pianist. And then got a job at a store called Wolf Nursery. I moved through that company over a dozen years and actually became a vice president and general manager of a company that we purchased in California. And then the company fell apart. So that's when I began my serious discernment. I returned back to Fort Worth, Texas for my discernment, and I entered the seminary there and was ordained in 1999 for the Diocese of Fort Worth by my uncle, my mother's brother, Joseph Sharon, the Bishop of Des Moines, Iowa, who has been an example of the priesthood to me all of my life and had been my spiritual director for years. I remember he never did push me to be a priest, but there was one time where he did push me a little bit and say, it's about time you take a look at it, or else you'll be thinking about it for the rest of your life. And so as I did through seminary, I had many instances of grace where that just kept coming back to me, that this is the path that God was calling me to follow.
Father Berg served as pastor of various parishes in Texas before being named Vicar General of Fort Worth in 2008. He served in that role for 4 years before receiving the call to become the next Bishop of Pueblo.
You don't study to be a bishop. There's no course on that. And when I was elected administrator for my Diocese of Fort Worth in the absence of a bishop, we had a year where I was in charge of everything, but then I got my call, and that was to Pueblo, which at the time I didn't know anything about where Pueblo was. That was my first thought, when the Archbishop informed me. Then I found out you have to have a coat of arms, and then I found out you have to have a slogan. And so in talking and speaking with my Uncle Joe, he said, well, think about your favorite prayer. And so I did, after looking at a few other mottos, and it was, thy will be done. And for some reason, that clicked. Now, as I look back and I see that Matthew Kelly says those are the 4 toughest words in the Bible, that what we've done in our diocese with that basic, practical slogan is to bring things around very, very well into this spiritual charism that we're claiming for ourselves and we're promoting, the spirituality of St. Therese of Lisieux. And along with, and of course, through the hands of Our Lady of Guadalupe. So they all go together. Of course, Catholic spirituality all goes together. But I am one of those who sort of tries to bring things down to a very practical level that have worked for me in the past and can work for people that I can teach and promote.
In the years since becoming bishop, Bishop Berg has worked to lead the people of Pueblo as a pastor and an apostle, leading his flock to Christ.
This is a different vocation. This is fathering at a different level. For me to become a priest and then to become a pastor was the fulfillment of all my dreams. All of a sudden I knew what I was made to do. And then I went into the administrator of the Diocese of Fort Worth, and then coming over here, looking at fathering in a different way. I think one of the questions, and where do I get the joy? The joy always for me is the joy of conversion. It really is a continual conversion, I think, into the mercy of Jesus Christ, into the powerlessness of the vocation, and a certain sympathy with the parents, and the fathers and the mothers and people that are trying so hard out there to do things, you know, and how do you share that? How do you get across this sense that you're walking with them? That to me is why I'm here. That's my impetus. It's very quiet, but it has much to do with how the inside connects with the outside.